So we're back with the OG crew for Steph and Kat Talk. Wow, we have so much to discuss. Sisterhoods are fracturing. Tag teams are losing it. The title picture is going crazy, and we have superheroes crossing over into the biggest promotion in the world. This is Steph and Kat Talk. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs, and the room is stutters. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape. Every one of us, I was kinda late, 'cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, 'cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus.
Hey y'all, welcome to a new double dose episode of Steph and Kat Talk Wild, brought to you by the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and In Cat We Trust. Of course, I'm your girl Stephanie Hardy, your hostess with the mostest, the creator of HWP Extra, and co-creator of this fabulous show that's before you on this Wednesday night. But this time, I'm not alone. I have my tag team partner back with me. She is the creator of In Cat We Trust. She is an author, writer for Daily DDT, as well as I am too. We're both right there together. And she is the correspondent extraordinaire to multiple promotions in the New York and New Jersey area. And she is a super mom and creator of the Women of Color in Wrestling panel that was just featured in Philadelphia. Her name is Katrina Blake. That's Kat. Either way, she's here. How are you?
I am okay. It's been a busy day. Busy few days, but I am okay. Always was always appreciative of your intros.
Yes, and we will talk about a little bit later about someone else who appreciated my intro. I couldn't believe it. I was so happy. I can't wait to get into that. But of course, since we're back together, we got to get into all the stuff that's going on with our WoW superheroes. That's Women of Wrestling. So, of course, if you're watching this live, thank you for watching it on all of our platforms. And of course, if you want to watch it later, you can do that as well on both of our YouTube channels on The Hardy Wrestling Podcast and In Cat We Trust. So, Kat, the biggest thing, the most amazing thing happened this past weekend. There have been so many wrestling shows between NXT Battleground, between Saturday night's main event, AEW Double or Nothing. So many shows took place over the past weekend when it came to wrestling. It's been power packed. But in the midst of it, women's wrestling continues to be in the forefront of the conversation, even as even as late as yesterday when it comes to changes that are going on. But one of the biggest things that I have to talk about is Tormenta, or otherwise known as Chick Tormenta, showing up on NXT Battleground alongside um, Dallas in the locker room with Ava on Battleground Tampa this past Sunday. So, of course, a pay per view that is coming up is Money in the Bank. But right next to Money in the Bank, we have Worlds Collide. And of course, in the past, Worlds Collide has included NXT and NXT UK. But of course, since UK is no longer a thing, it's just been it hasn't really happened over the last few years. The last one that happened um, had the UK titles combined with the NXT titles, and that was really the last one that they had. But now they're having Worlds Collide as WWE has acquired AAA, which is the Mexican promotion that puts a highlight and a spotlight on luchador, on lucha wrestling and lucha culture. And that announcement was, of course, made during WrestleMania weekend, and it was pretty nuts to kind of get that news when you're getting ready to watch one of the biggest pay-per-views of all time happening in one of the biggest cities ever, and you're just like, WWE did what? So, in the midst of that, since they're preparing for Worlds Collide to take place next weekend in Los Angeles, they had two of their women show up on NXT. And one of them was our very own Tormenta. So, if you watch WoW Superhero, she is the luchadora who wears the pink purple, yellow, and black mask. And she has the blonde hair, as you can see in this picture. But seeing as she has wrestled all over the world, she has definitely wrestled in AAA. And to see her alongside her tag team partner, um, Dallas, get into it with Stephanie Vaquer, who is now the former NXT Women's Champion and a former NXT Women's North American Champion, just gagged the F out of me. Because for years I have been, since we have been covering WoW, I have been talking about for years how I would love it if more of the WoW girls could actually have a crossover with NXT or a crossover with WWE, because those women are that talented to me. So this happening really just hit me upside the head in the most surprising way possible. So congratulations to Tormenta. She now gets to participate in a tag team match against Stephanie Vaquer and Lola Vice next Saturday, and I could not be more thrilled that she's getting this opportunity. A number of the Wild Girls even posted about it, and it was just really great to see. So, Katrina, how did you feel when you saw our girl Tormenta pop up on NXT Battleground?
I thought it was super cool. Like if you follow WWE, we're all like aware of the AAA, WWE owning, I guess, AAA now. But it's always like nice. Sometimes we'll make a comment about who we'll like to see in other places. And while Tormenta is definitely somebody who's been all over, something we known as when we first was introduced to her. It was definitely really cool to kind of see her one unmasked, but just to see her looking great in an NXT locker room, and I'm hoping it's like an awesome match. I feel like it will be, but with regard to sometimes on WWE or with sometimes matches, is like of course they usually try to go for the people that might be home based, in regards to wins, and so hopefully it's like a great match that even whoever wins that tag match between the ladies at the Worlds Collide, and it still will be a solid run. But it was really cool to see her. I was like, yay, and she looked great. So it was really nice to see when you see the girls, all over the place. It's always great for me to see.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And in terms of them just being able to fight normally, I have no doubt that they will be able to fight, the way that we're used to seeing them, and the level of excellence we're used to seeing from them. I'm sure it'll be fine. But I'm just very excited about this because I have a really deep appreciation for lucha wrestling, and it seemed that her and her tag team partner, Dallas, had a huge issue with Stephanie Vaquer, of course, with their past dating back to AAA before it was acquired. So I can't wait to hear more about what that story is, because I would hear about, AAA, but not really have the chance to watch them nearly as much. But I am just excited to see how that's gonna, fit into this WWE, sponsored event. Then on top of that, you have Lola Vice thrown in there, who is just also a wonderful Latina woman, getting to participate in an event like this. So I'm very excited to see it. I'm so pumped that Tormenta gets to be a part of it. And, hopefully soon, who knows? The future might hold more crossovers. I would love it if WoW had more crossovers. But if this is a part of a piece of a crossover I can get, I'm holding on to it and I'm loving it. So congratulations to Tormenta. We've watched her grow. We've watched her wrestle in and out of WoW and fight for championship titles and tag team titles with WoW and everything. So to see her get this opportunity just meant the world. So yay, Tormenta. Yes, girl. Can't wait to see it. So I just had to discuss that because that was just one of the best moments of this entire weekend as a whole. So now we shift into talking about both of these episodes from the past 2 weeks with Wild Superheroes. The first one being Wicked Sisterhoods. There's a lot of sister ideology being pushed in these last couple of episodes. And it was so funny. The title of the episode was called Wicked Sisterhoods. And I wrote in my notes, are people born wicked or do they have wickedness thrust upon them? I'm gonna always love Wicked. That was the line our beloved Glinda said in the musical and in the movie, of course. And I just anything with that's wicked related, I'm just a big fan of. So yeah, wickedness can be thrust upon you. People are not born wicked. That's what I believe. So the episode, which aired on May 17th and the 18th, started with a recap of Miami Sweet Heat and their drama during the tag team match with Penelope Pink and Holly Swag going up against Princess Aussie and Tormenta for those tag team titles, which of course Penelope and Holly wound up retaining. And then, of course, Lindsay and Lori were arguing about what's wrong with them and how they haven't been on the same page lately. And this was backstage. And of course, there was more to come as the episode went on to see what happened in that argument. But in the WoW arena, we had Samantha Smart and the WoW World Champion, the Classmaster, make their way to the ring. And of course, Samantha Smart had nothing nice to say to the WoW universe, per usual. Um, she said, my, our fans are riled up tonight. It's okay. I will accept your boos as cheers because your taste level and IQ are so inferior that your cheers would actually be an insult. So go ahead, boo away, you idiots. It's the greatest compliment we could ever receive. And while you're busy complimenting us, I have a favor to ask of the WoW locker room. Would you please try harder? None of you, not a single one of you, has the skill, the size, the intellect, or the audacity to challenge us. And after she threw that gauntlet out, the alliance comes out here, and Adriana Gambino interrupted Samantha. She spoke in Italian a little bit, and she said, "Smarty pants, is that in your vocabulary? That means shut up, talking that game about how no one's good enough for your class master. Last time I checked, she never pinned any of my girls. So Raina Del Rey chimed in and said, you know what? Let me at her. And David Mack agreed, and this was our first match, which was the Classmaster versus Raina Del Rey with Adriana Gambino on commentary. They both had a shoving contest towards the beginning of the match, and as during this shoving contest, this is where where the Classmaster realized that Reina Del Rey isn't just an easy target she can just topple over like she's been doing everybody else. I know we say this a lot, but the Classmaster is 6 foot tall. So she always stands head and shoulders above any one of her opponents. And this just wasn't the case this time with Reina Del Rey. Reina also realized that the Classmaster wasn't somebody that she could run over either. So you had both of these undeniable forces just coming to blows with each other. The Classmaster tried to lift her up to no avail. She tried to toss Reina into the corner on her stomach, but then she kicked her in her back, as you can see in that picture. And then she actually hit her bookmark leg drop and her scholar collar to Reina Del Rey, but Reina was playing a little dirty by biting the Classmaster's hand and bashing her chest in while she was tangled in the ropes. They both went back and forth, and of course, with the alliance out there, BK Rhythm decided to climb up the apron to distract the referee as Reina Del Rey tried to pull out a chain to hit the Classmaster, but the Classmaster was too smart, as she likes to be, and she ducked, and Reina wound up hitting BK in the head, and the Classmaster covered Reina Del Rey, and of course, this was a non-title match, so Classmaster got the win. So, as I appreciate the fact that Reina Del Rey has been putting herself out there on social media and talking about how she could be the best challenger for the Classmaster after she's gotten rid of everybody else. But in this scenario, you could almost ask or wonder, like, would Reina have posed a little bit better in this match if it wasn't for the alliance? Or, what's the deal with that? Or just either way, the Classmaster is just smarter than all of her opponents and she's always just one step ahead. So, Katrina, how did you feel about their encounter, Classmaster and Samantha Smart's encounter um, with the alliance? And how did you feel about the match to happen afterward?
I thought, you know, eh, to be fair, I felt like we're in a there we kind of haven't seen as much recently. Like, I know she's been part of, Adriana Gambino's group and whatnot with the Brat Pack and everything, but she was somebody previously, at least in previous seasons, that we thought she was like her goal at the time is to go straight to getting like the wild title, and so she's kind of been the MAA from the title picture in a little bit. In regards to that was being the goal, I felt like she was kind of more so for the group for a while. With that being said, if you're going off of like level of toughness of the group. And this is like not even shade to the ladies. This is just saying in regards to she, I felt was more gritty when it came to like having some of the matches she had previously. Then this seems like the perfect person to maybe try to get a title shot. Do you guys feel a way slightly about like you just deciding though, like yes, I'm all for or talk your crap or say what you're gonna say with your chest. I'm fine with that. I'm even fine if you go to social media. But you know, I am a little bit iffy of like you just getting a shot possibly or like that just because you said something. I'm always feeling like you should probably work towards whatever that shot of opportunity may be in regard to the other people that had to do that to get a title shot or whatever the case might be. And even though, Samantha Smart did a little bit of finagling, even at some point Classmaster 2 had to have some kind of matches in place before she became champion. And so I did have a little issue with that. But outside of that, I did enjoy the match. But I do think that, Classmaster bested Rena in this regard. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And as much as I am a little bit iffy on some of their methods of how they do things, or how Samantha kind of interjects herself in matches, she definitely was the better opponent, better, I guess, wrestler, better superhero in this match, and she definitely did come out victorious. So I was like, well, I can't like see too much, I guess, because she did win, and it wasn't too much of like it wasn't like there was a lot of finagling or a lot of like nonsense too much like normal. It was just, oh no, she just was outbested in this regard. And so I was like, okay, so I was okay with the match. It definitely I just was like, I don't know how I feel about you guys just saying you need to like how that works. And then I'm also wondering, are we gonna ever mention what happened with Adriana Campino's like completely like undefeated streak, and then we've never talked about it again? And I just want to know what is happening there. Are we going to see that at some point? Is she gonna be like taking care of the other girlies is fine, but are you sis gonna step in the ring and decide I'm gonna get my title shot because technically you earned it? She did. It's not like she definitely earned the shot. She was undefeated, one of the other undefeated people at the time. So, and she hasn't had like a solo match set. So I am wondering when we gonna get that. But otherwise, it's a good match.
Yeah, it was a good match. And, I feel that Reina really did show and prove herself, and prove that she could, challenge for the Wild World title if she really wanted to. But here again, like you said, it is something that you do have to work for. Um, it is something that you have to work for. And in regards to her doing that, I'm more than sure. Um, she has no issue doing that because she's been someone on WoW who's been very forceful and also very tough when it comes to facing off against different opponents. So I'm more than sure we might see her in the title picture sooner rather than later. But I will say her losing this match wasn't a good case for it. So hopefully she'll bounce back a little bit more. And of course, it's like you have the Brat Pack and they sort of operate as a tag team mostly. Um, But and then like you said, you have Adriana Gambino who mostly talks and everything. But funny enough, I love how you mentioned that because of course some of our girls on WoW have wrestling careers outside of WoW, and she's been on shows. So for the life of me, I don't understand why she wasn't necessarily wrestling in these past few episodes. But of course this season isn't over just yet. So we just have to wait and see, I guess, how that turns out. But it's like you said, Miss Ma'am does have a case for a title shot because she
Because
was.
I'm undefeated.
So hopefully we'll have answers to that pretty soon because I do miss her seeing her in the ring a while. And hopefully we'll get more answers to that. But of course, the Classmaster wound up getting the upper hand and winning that match. So she's still our dominant Wild World Champion. Even though this title wasn't on the line, she still has her dominance there. So, moving on to match number 2, we had Gloria Glitter, the Wild Trios champions, along with Coach Campanelli and Krush, going up against Sugar, one half of the Mighty Mites. And is as I was watching this match, I was just wondering, like, is Coach gonna crash out again? Because me even talking about her crashing out caused a little bit of a ruckus on social media because when I shared my clip of the last episode that I hosted, where I was recapping an episode, one of the episodes where Coach Campanelli crashed out over losing and crashed out over Crush losing a match. Crush did not take too kindly to it. She even went as far as to call me not her friend anymore, which made me sad because I'm just like, Crush, I've always supported you. Why you got to turn against me just because I'm doing my job as a quasi journalist and talking about what happened? Y'all lost. Coach crashed out. I was just being honest. But they didn't take too kindly to that. So, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to take too kindly to me saying that, but that's just my truth and I have to live it. And yeah, I just had to wonder, like, is Coach going to crash out if Gloria loses here? So I don't know. This match turned out to be pretty good for the most part because here again, Gloria Glitter is one of the best newer superheroes that they've added on to the roster. Gloria Glitter was very rough in the beginning of this match. She was kicking Sugar in the chest and she gave spears and knees to the abs. But there was one point where Gloria got a little bit too big for her britches, and Sugar moved out of the way and started targeting her knees, and she gave a pin attempt, and she had a drop toe hold and a cradle pin for a 1 count. And a lot of the lucha background that Sugar had got the upper hand over Glitter with a lucha arm drag and a head scissors. She was definitely catching Gloria off guard here. But here again, Gloria decided to get rough again and started kneeing Sugar's abs and locking her within a full Nelson. And she even blocked a DDT attempt from Sugar and hit her stair stepper, as you can see in that picture, for a 2 count. And of course, Sugar kept fighting back as much as she could, but Gloria wound up getting the upper hand with a gory bomb after Sugar's last 2 pin attempts to win the match. And I would say this was definitely a much needed win for the top tier gang because here lately they had been losing a lot of their singles matches. But after this match, they didn't even take the time to celebrate them getting the win because they decided to jump Sugar afterward and they proceeded to beat up on her until Xena Phoenix and Kara Kai ran out to protect Sugar from the same fate that their friends had faced. And then Kara Kai got on the microphone and passionately spoke, saying, "Top tier, we have literally had this much of you," as if to say, they had had enough. "We're done. We've already proven that we can beat you. So this whole best team in professional wrestling thing, you might as well start thinking of a new coach rule or something because it's not going to keep going." This isn't even about the championships anymore, and that disappointed me, but I'll get into that a little bit later. This is about principles, something that you guys know nothing about. And then Xena chimed in and said, "Top tier, listen up. We are still standing for a reason. If you guys were real athletes and real champions, you would face us fair and square. No games, no cheating, just technique, pure wrestling. We'll be seeing you in the ring." And of course, David McClain made it official that top tier will, of course, defend their trios titles against Xena Phoenix, Karakai, and Sugar. And that was a miracle save because in my mind, I thought Karakai was just saying, yeah, we don't even want the trios titles no more. Because I am, of course, a supporter of taking those trios titles away from top tier because they have gotten power drunk. But either way, we're going to see that later on. So, Katrina, how did you feel about the match between Gloria Glitter and Sugar, and of course, the actions that took place afterward?
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Um. So yeah, with top tier, like you did mention Gloria Glitter being one of like the additions that have been super, like definitely a good addition in regards to her wrestling skill and wrestling style. And I agree there. What I don't agree with much, is how they interact or how they handle things. And I feel like I know they were also mad when I said this previously about I don't do well with bullying. I feel like there is a level of I feel like Samantha was a little upset about me mentioning bullying before in regards to bullying, but top tier has also engaged in bullying type shenanigans. There was absolutely no reason after that match for them to go and jump Sugar. She didn't need all that. Wasn't it wasn't necessary. You already had to win. Like you didn't need to add to it. I felt like you take what you got and then move on. And the fact that they did all that, it's like whatever greatness you could have as the trios champions makes it very hard to look at it because you're doing all this other hoopla and shenanigans surrounding the trios. And I did see, her crush out previously. And so, ma'am, like, I know she was mad because out of the single matches, Gloria is the only one who won hers. But, like, it's still one of those things where it's like, okay, are we so you got to win, and the response is we're gonna do all of that. It shouldn't have even gotten to any of that. It's take the win, go backstage, whatever you do afterwards, and celebrate. We didn't have to do all that, and so I do think it was a good match, but I didn't particularly like that they did all that at the end. I just felt like it was like, what was the point? Like you guys, we didn't need to do all that. It was unnecessary. So I'm sure I'm probably gonna feel a way about me saying this as well. Apologies, ladies, but gonna call a spade a spade. There was just no need for all of that. We can do what we need to do without shenanigans, and they definitely was engaging in shenanigans.
They really were. I'm sorry for that brief disconnection. Um, I hated that they were doing that to Sugar because, this seemed like a match that was just created for the sake of athleticism and for the sake of competition. And they've never really had any issues with Sugar and the Mighty Mites before. So for them to be that malicious to her after they won the match was completely unnecessary. And I was just like, girl, like how many times are you guys going to just continue to bully and beat down on people after you beat them? It's like you're already the champions. What type of kick do you get out of knocking people down who are already down or who you've already defeated? Like it is just the most annoying thing on the planet. And I'm happy that Xena and I'm happy that Karakai came out to her rescue because otherwise they probably would have injured Sugar and we wouldn't have had any level of Mighty Mites anymore. And that would have made me upset because I like her and I like Spice and I can't wait till she comes back. So it was just really unnecessary. And I'm happy that at this point that a fire has been lit under Karakai and Xena Phoenix to actually go for the gold in terms of the trios titles because I am just ready for top tier to get sober from their power intoxication. Like it's just really bad, it's really bad. So hopefully at this point within the next few weeks we will see that trios title match, and hopefully team Kai will be successful, and hopefully Cherish Strike will come back too because I definitely miss her on my screen as well. So yeah, I'm ready for that match when it happens. And of course, if I share this clip and if top tier doesn't like it, then everybody can't be happy all the time. So, match number three. Sorry. Match three was between Chainsaw. It was here again another trios match. Speaking of the trio division, it was Chainsaw, Daisy Lane, and an unexpected partner in Fury versus Roxxy Fierce, Chantilly Chella, and Holidead. Um, this was really interesting to me considering we had seen Fury sort of get scouted out by a vicious Veronica Varum as a possible partner. And we saw her fighting in singles action. So the idea of seeing her team up with Daisy Lane and Chainsaw was just like, huh? Really? Hmm. We'll see. But in the midst of this, Holiday, of course, came in tossing and blocking Daisy Lane's strikes. It was really interesting and kind of funny to see Holiday, who was just so big and imposing, sort of throw around Daisy Lane like she was a doll. It was just like really insane to look at. And Fury sustained a neck breaker from Holiday, and Holiday was just coming in hot at the beginning of the match. And then Chantilly tagged in with a Meteora. Something that I love seeing is the chemistry between Holiday and Chantilly. They seem to have built it up a whole lot with every match that we see them in. There was a cross-body splash to Fury for a 2 count. Roxy and Chantilly also showed their chemistry to take down Fury a lot. Roxy has gotten way stronger. Her strength was on display in this match. She actually lifted up Fury into a snake eyes into the turnbuckle, and that was cool. But of course, once Chainsaw gets in, that's when the trajectory of the match changed. She grabbed Roxy by her hair, which upset me on different levels, um, to break the count, and then she dragged Fierce. She dragged Rox Roxy into the corner, and then Fury wound up kicking and attacking Roxy to break up the count that she had on her, and the referee had to keep Holiday away from the match. Then Chainsaw lifted and dropped Roxy, and then Holiday wound up breaking that count. Um, but in the end, as the match continued to go on, Holiday continued to dominate by hitting a kick and a spine buster to Chainsaw, who's someone that she used to have history with. And then Holiday tagged in Chantilly with Daisy in her arms and then gave an assisted wheelbarrow splash, which was very impressive looking. But then Fury tagged in and proceeded to clean house, and then Daisy Lane got thrown into a splash into to Chantilly Chella for the win. And yeah, Daisy Lane, Chainsaw, and Fury wound up winning the match, and that was the end of that. So that bummed me out because I was really hoping that Roxy, Chantilly, and Holiday could pull out the win because we have been seeing Chantilly and Holiday and Roxy lose a lot lately. So I was hoping that that was going to change, but Fury came in and proved to be a good asset for this team, and they wound up winning. So yeah, Katrina, how did you feel about this match?
I enjoyed it. I did like the matchup, and it is always cool to see Holodeck sometimes just be a little bit different than what we expect from her. But I do think that her and Chantilly just happen to work as different as they are. I do think that they work really well together. With Fury, I feel like with her being added, it was like oh okay, but not too much of a surprise because she has her own like style that's not necessarily too far away from Chainsaw and oh crap, what is her name? What is her name? I forgot it. Remind me of her name again.
Daisy Lane?
Yes, yes. So I feel like she's not too far removed from them in regards to how her gimmick is and her style is, but I do think it might have been just the extra aha, to get them to win this matchup. Would it have been nice to see Chantilly and and her group win? Yes, I do think it would have been cool. But I can't say I'm necessarily mad about the other team winning necessarily either. I'm like I'm okay with it. It's like it's not something that's like I'm like oh I don't know. I did think the match was fun for what it was. I thought it was a really good match, and I enjoy it. And I'm curious to see if this is going to be like a thing with Fury, or if this was like a one-off. Like, is it going to be just for this match, or is it going to be a situation where it might be, you know, all their matches where she may be teamed up with them? But I did enjoy it otherwise.
Yeah, I did enjoy it too. And it's just hmm, I just with these trios matches, I do want a little bit more purpose behind them too, because in the midst of course, top tier feuding with Karakai and the other women, Xena Phoenix and Sugar. I feel like with the trios division, with them having matches in this way, that there should be more of a purpose behind them. Like, can they also earn more opportunities for the trios titles? Because here again, you do have the alliance, you do have um these teams that we just mentioned. I guess a part of me just wants more purpose behind them, of course, fighting each other, and of course, if they get another opportunity at the titles, then that would be fine. So I think that's really all I'm sort of hoping for. But in this match, it was very impressive to see how each team was working together. I felt like you said, in terms of that chemistry and working differently with each other, I felt like Chantilly, Roxy, and Holidead had more chemistry than Fury, Daisy, and Chainsaw for sure. So, um, it was very surprising how that match went. But either way, it was still a pretty good trios match, and hopefully we'll get more purpose behind these matches other than just seeing them sort of just take up the card um and just be there. And hopefully we'll see more trios action and more feuding that doesn't just involve top tier and one other team, and that's just it. So yeah, that's what we're hoping for. But in the end, of course, Daisy Lane, Chainsaw, and Fury wound up winning um the match. And who knows? We might see Fury get back into the swing of things for singles, or she might just, run back to, living the team life. Who knows? So yeah, after that match, we go backstage and we see Sibley Skulls hyping up the main event and giving a recap of all of the drama that happened with the triple threat match between Genesis, Paola Mayfield, and Santana Garrett. Um, I I feel like this is something that we do get to bring up to a degree because of the interview that we did have today. Um, I hate that Santana Garrett was not the number one contender. I really hate it. But I think we'll just get to that a little bit later. But we did get footage backstage of seeing the fight between the in within the Fab Four. Lana Starr suggested that due to the misunderstandings of Lindsay and Lori Carlson and their miscommunications, that they should fight it out in the ring. And something that irritated me, um, when it came to this interaction that Lindsay and Lori were having with Lana Starr, is that none of these women decided to be the voice of reason at all. Um, there was no one telling these sisters that they shouldn't be fighting each other. Of course, you had Holly who was chiming in because, of course, she's very used to the idea of fighting with a family member. And then, of course, you have Penelope who's just stirring the pot or whatever. And Lana was just like, look, maybe you two just need to fight each other. And I'm just like, they're sisters. They shouldn't be fighting each other. They're twins. They shouldn't be fighting each other. But of course, which led to the announcement of their match happening in the next episode that we will get to. But yeah, now we go to our main event, which has been up here for a minute. As I ranted about the match being made or whatever, we have the main event of this episode, which was Santana Garrett versus Paola Mayfield, the Colombian GOAT, which was for the number one contendership to the WoW World Championship, which happened because both of these women submitted Genesis. So now they both now have to fight for the contendership. So, of course, Abilene Maverick came out with Paola, her girl, and this was going to pose a lot of problems. But as the match went on, both of the women locked up and shoved each other into the ropes and the turnbuckles. Santana Garrett hit an arm drag lock onto Paola. Paola was playing dirty early on in the match by grabbing Santana's hair. And of course, Santana proceeded to battle back with a splash. You could tell no shade to Paola, but you can definitely tell that Santana is the OG and the veteran in this situation because there were a lot of moves and a lot of things that she was hitting and locking Paola into that it felt like, wow, Paola just struggled a little bit to get out of. But Paola did recollect herself. And to a degree, I almost thought that Abilene sort of put a weapon in her knee pad to a degree. And I was like, Lord, please don't tell me Paola is about to start cheating the way that Abilene did last season. Lord help. But that wasn't the case. Um, Paola did, however, rake Santana's eyes and then punched her for a one count. Paola kept raining down punches to Santana Garrett and gave a rope assisted splash. Paola drove her knee into Santana's back, but of course Santana fought out of it. They both traded punches back and forth. Santana gave a headbutt, and both ladies wound up kicking each other in the face to knock each other down at one point. But Santana wound up rising. And she hit her backhand spring elbow, her rise and shine that she's famous for. And they both slap each other in the face. Then Paola missed a splash attempt because Santana moved out of the way. And as Santana was prepping for her backhand spring splash that she does with the ropes, Abilene Maverick pulled on her wrist and knocked her down and distracted her. And then Paola hit her spinning neck breaker to win the match, which makes her the number one contender for the Wild World Championship. Paola will now has an opportunity to face the Classmaster this weekend for the Wild World title. This upset me real bad. I was really upset. I was like, excuse me, what the hell, Burton? What the hell, LeBron James? I can't. It was just too much. But before I get off deep into it, Katrina, how did you feel about the match and its outcome?
I definitely was a bit peeved. I do feel like, Santana in particular have a bit of a rough go with getting opportunities where it's not like where it's fair, meaning there's somebody else that's not thrown in a match where it's not some weird stipulation, something going on where it's just a fair one on one. And I feel like she has been trying to work her way the proper way, and it just hasn't been going that way. I was highly annoyed, but you also know I don't particularly like Abilene. I feel like Abilene is just there doing shenanigans, as I did say earlier. She does like to engage in shenanigans. I do not particularly like, and so I personally was not happy with this. And so, do I think Paul has a chance? No, not in particular. If Classmaster is doing everything else that she's done so far in matches, I feel like Paula might have a bit of a challenge ahead. I don't think it's going to be easy. And even with if Abilene wants to like interfere or something, I do think that Samantha's probably not going to allow that to happen. I feel like so in that case, it'll be a pretty fair type of situation. But I was annoyed. I thought it was a good match, but I was annoyed because it was just like, but why? But here we are. So yes, I was right there with you as far as level of annoyance, but it was solid. I just didn't particularly like the way it went down and the outcome.
Yeah. Funny enough, in regards to what happened with Aveline interfering and just with the managers interfering in general, a question that I would pose to David McClain that I wish I had the chance to ask, um, would be, what are some ways in which he can sort of keep that from happening a whole lot? Like, would you, enforce a rule or would you delegate a general manager to sort of say, you can't do this or sort of enforce more rules for the managers? Because it's almost like you can sort of predict that if a manager is out there, shenanigans are going to happen. And because of Santana Garrett's, prowess and how hard she was fighting for another chance at the Wild World title, it feels like a crime and a robbery that she's not the number one contender. Like she wants to have that opportunity again because of course since Americana is no longer there, they're not necessarily fighting for the tag titles, at this stage. Like, why is it that she would have this opportunity stolen away from her? And furthermore, how is it that David is commentating and seeing everything go on, and he's just letting it happen when, by all accounts, there have historically been people in power who will reverse a decision of a match and tell people restart it, like restart the match and let it be fair and square, and send whoever out of there. Now, mind you, of course, there is the rule of the referee not seeing it or whatever. But I feel like if you're a person in power and you see wrong going on, you don't just sit on your hands and just let it happen. You make a move to make it right. And I just feel like the way that this could have been made right would be like to just give Santana, like put Santana in there as like a triple threat or something. Like we've seen triple threats for far less. So if that's the case, then put her in for a triple threat. Like I feel like she should still be allowed to fight for the title. But sadly, that's not how it happened. Paola Mayfield is the number one contender. Abilene Maverick is out here just doing the devil's work for her protege, and it's just sad. It's sad. But of course, Abilene will do anything for Paola. So I just can't. So that's how Wicked Sisterhoods ended. And now we move towards the next episode, which is Twin versus Twin. And Katrina, I just have to ask, how, since you have told me before you are a twin, how is it that we have gotten to this place with these twins fighting like this? How have we reached this point? And how do you get back to each other? Like how do you make this work? I have a sibling, but we're not twins. So, Katrina,
I will say I might not be the right person to ask only because I do have a twin brother, but I do think there's a difference between being twins that are of the same. So like even if it's like fraternal identical, if it's the same sex, so like both two women twins or two men twins, I think there's a different level of maybe possible closeness that might be for. And I'm not saying this is always the case with like with me and my twin brother because we are boy. There a lot about us that's very different. And I can't even say we're like. I feel like I'm closer to my middle brother, which is so weird. I know to say, I'm probably closer to my middle brother than I am my twin brother. Though if any of my siblings need me, crazy big sis is here to save the day. But um, outside of that, I am closer to my middle brother and like my youngest sister, and so it's a very weird dynamic that how do you being in a place of like where you're supposed to be very close and there's something just not gelling. But I take it as even though they're twins, and I think it might be even I think even with them like not agreeing or being in a weird space right now, it might even hit more because they are twins. So it's probably like, oh, maybe you should understand better than anybody else. With that being said, as much of it as twins are twins, twins are also individuals, and they're not going to always get along, and there's going to be something that they may disagree on. And I think in that case, it's just while I will know about it, wrestling your twin, I wouldn't necessarily do that for my twin brother. I do think that sometimes you need to kind of like get it out, and then you kind of go back into it without it being necessarily as extra as it was before. So maybe this is their way to kind of hash it out and then get back on the same page. Sometimes you just gotta let it out, or whatever it is. If it in this case it happens to be wrestling each other, but otherwise I feel like maybe it's just one of those moments that they have to get back on the same page, and this is the way to do it.
yeah, it just kind of bummed me out because I guess to me, like, cause like I said before, I don't have a twin. My sister and I are 8 years apart, with me being the oldest, and it's just we are going to oppose each other because we were both raised in completely different times. Um, and even though we were raised by the same parents, we were raised at completely different times and have completely different experiences. Um, but it's just that's one of the things I hate if I can get vulnerable for a second. I do not like fighting with my sister. Like there are moments where I know where we do disagree on things and it can get heated at times, but I absolutely hate it. Like I cannot stand fighting with someone I love. I hate it so much. And it's just, my mom always taught us like we shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be fighting the world because all we have are each other, at the end of the day. So to see Lindsay and Lori get to this point, especially when it's not necessarily their fault, really just made me sad. I was just like, man, y'all shouldn't be fighting each other. Y'all need to be fighting Penelope and Holly and Lana. But we'll get to that. We got to talk about the rest of these matches. So the first match in this episode was actually the episode was preempted for me a little bit because we had soccer. So Birmingham Legion Football Club, I love y'all, but y'all kind of got in my way a little bit Saturday, but it's okay. The first match was the Brat Pack, BK Rhythm and Gigi Gianni versus Big Rigs and Bourbon, Jesse Jones and Big Rig Betty, with Adriana Gambino on commentary and Reina Del Rey basically being the muscle and the X factor in that tag team match. Um, of course, we had to hear BK's bars, which is Katrina's less than favorite part of the show. She said, "You're right, Gigi. It does look like they shop at Goodwill," which upset me because as a person who used to work at Goodwill fairly recently, I don't appreciate that. We will not be slandering Goodwill because you can get lots of good stuff there for a great price, and you can find hidden treasures there for good prices as well. So let's not shame Goodwill, okay? Everybody ain't got it like that. So when you ain't got it like that, you do what you can. And if Goodwill is there, you use it, okay? We ain't shaming folks up in here. But they're not trailer trash, they're just a whole landfill. She said, and hey, I know we're brats, but at least we didn't raise one up. And I was just like, dang, so y'all really going for the jugular, basically telling Big Rig Betty that she raised a brat. So let us win quick so they can repo your pickup truck. And here again, these bars were not the greatest. Not this time. They're usually fairly decent, but this time they just weren't okay and they were very malicious. You're dissing Big Rig Betty and her motherhood, and you're dissing Goodwill. Girl, bye. So Um, the WoW universe were chanting BK sucks, and Big Rig Betty and Jesse were actually dancing to it, so that was pretty cool and funny to see. But in the beginning of the match, Big Rig Betty got the upper hand on Gigi a whole lot. Even though, of course, they were trying to, undermine them because I guess they were older and because they felt they were better than them. Gigi was being towed up by the veteran. Betty got her together with arm twists and a headlock, and they were both sort of dancing a little bit with each other, trying to dance out of each other's moves and submissions a bit. And of course, the chemistry was on point when it came to Betty and Jesse, and it was to the point to where Gigi had to desperately run to tag BK. But once Jesse got tagged in, she hit a hammerlock to BK, and they hit the kiss my grits, to which Adriana Gambino admitted on commentary that she felt like grits were gross, which I think is pretty funny because I'm from the South and I actually don't like grits. And that's my first time saying that out loud on any one of my platforms. I'm from Alabama and I don't like grits. I'm sorry. I know that might sound weird, but that's where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. I never have liked grits. And I also don't like oatmeal either. But either way, it's funny. So BK was able to actually push Jesse Jones through the ropes and out onto the floor with the assistance of Reina Del Rey, who pulled the rope back. And then BK and Gigi and Jesse were all grabbing at each other's hair and trying to hit each other. But then the fans were chanting, "Let's go, Jesse, let's go. Let's go, Jesse. Let's go." Clap, clap. And of course, BK Rhythm and Gigi hit their album cover and proceeded to use more dirty tactics to try to get the upper hand. Gigi tripped Jesse into BK's knee and locked in an abdominal stretch to Jesse Jones. Reina Del Rey got bumped off the apron, though, in the midst of all of the drama. And Jesse Jones hit a backhand. Well, actually, no, not Jesse Jones. Big Rig Betty hit a backhand and a super kick, and then both of the ladies combined a European uppercut and a Russian leg sweep to Gigi, and they covered her for the 1, 2, 3. So Big Rigs and Bourbon got the win here in a very hotly contested match. It was a great tag team match full of great chemistry. But Big Rigs and Bourbon seemed to have their number. So, Katrina, how did you feel about this match? And actually, how do you feel about grits?
I like grits actually. I don't like oatmeal. I know people, anybody who knows me, know my stance against yucky oatmeal. I hate oatmeal, but I do like grits. I feel like you put grits and just put some salt, pepper, and some butter, and let it do what it do, and put some eggs and sausage. Top tier, but no pun intended. um, but yeah, no, this was a good match. I do like that the Brat Pack assumed, that oh, we may have it in the bag. I felt like they kind of came out feeling a bit cocky, and Jesse and Big Rids was able to kind of be like, well, you can't get this long in wrestling without knowing what you're doing for the most part. Um, and so I do think this is a very good match, and I was okay with the win being it was because it was definitely a highly contested match in regards. It was really good back and forth, but it was just one of those matches where the vets kind of had their number, if you will. I feel like they just happened to have their number and it worked out for them and they got the win. But it was a definitely solid open as far as matches for this episode.
Yeah, it was pretty solid. And you're right. I really do think the Brat Pack did come in very cocky. But hey, the one thing that Big Rigs and Bourbon doesn't mind doing is humbling people who think they can just underestimate them. And I like that. I like seeing that a lot because, of course, since they lost the tag titles, um, and then, of course, they lost their opportunity to get them back. We haven't really seen them sort of be this dominant in a while. So it was really cool to see them get the upper hand over, the alliance who's just been trying to run through everybody and just sort of, push themselves in everybody's business, as if to say they're the best, team throughout WoW. So it was really refreshing to see them win again. So I agree. It was a really great match there. So in the midst of this, we go backstage and we see Lindsay Carlson venting to WoW Tag Team Champion Holly Swag about not wanting to fight her twin sister with those, feelings. But Holly doesn't actually be genuine with her. She proceeds to lie and say that Lori said that she was soft and that she wouldn't be able to go through with the match. And Lindsay was like, she said that? And then they went backstage even more. And Penelope Pink was talking to Lori saying that Lindsay said that it was going to be an easy win. And the only reason that she said that was because she was the oldest by a minute. And then Penelope Pink said, look, kick her ass and show her who the real twin is. You see how Penelope and Holly are just being messy? Just
I
being, I hate it. Excuse me. I hate it. Like just being all kinds of messy and just and just driving a wedge between Lindsay and Lori. Just feeding them all kinds of lies, making it seem like they were just talking all this trash about each other. Like I hated that so much. But in the midst of that, we go to match number 2, which was a very interesting matchup in terms of singles competition. You have Genesis, who's trying to bounce back from her double tap out thing, fighting against her former exile partner, Scout Parker. And of course, if you remember, it was Genesis Exodus and Scout Parker, but Scout was ice cold, and they did mention that on commentary. And as the match got started, Genesis was saying, "Oh, I love this new look you've got going on. You think you're better than me? You think you're better than me?" And Scout did not take too kindly to that at all. And she shoved Genesis, and then they locked up. Then Genesis pushed Scout, and then Scout wound up climbing the top rope and hitting a drop kick and double knees to Genesis. Here again, another situation where Genesis thought she was just going to run through Scout because she feels like she can, but Scout was out here in this match to prove to her, look, I've grown since the last time we faced each other, honey. And in the midst of all of the submissions that Scout was trying to lock Genesis in, Genesis escaped because, of course, that's her MO. and she started targeting Scout's left leg, and she even locked in a variation of a sharpshooter, which I had never seen before. And I was like, okay, girl, I see you. But Scout Parker proceeded to fight back a little bit more with hobbles and limps because, of course, Genesis kept targeting her legs. And she even used Genesis X choke submission towards her. But then Genesis reversed it and then she hit a full Nelson slam in order to win the match. Even though this match was a tad bit short, it was still pretty good for the most part for what we saw from both of these women. Like, there was a lot of growth here again that we're seeing from Scout Parker, and it was great to see her hold her own against Genesis, who's just had an axe to grind for the past 2 months. But Genesis wound up getting the upper hand, and then she cuts a promo saying, "You are a piece of work, David McLean. Such a dirty piece of work. So I was ganged up on and taken down in a triple threat match, and your decision was to put me back in exile." And David was like, "Well, I didn't put you back in exile. I just put you in a match with your partner." Um, and then she continued saying, "Yeah, and you know my long history with Scout Parker, or as I used to call her, Ice Cold, my ex teammate who had to be exiled due to incompetence. And now she's Scout Parker, and she's a little bit stronger, but this whole match was a smack to my face. So when am I getting my title shot, McLean?" Here again, asking for another title shot. "Because it's time to do it, or are you going to be like the rest of them and exile me again?" And yeah, before I talk about how I feel about Genesis and her feelings, Katrina, how did you feel about this match and what Genesis had to say?
I like the match. I do think that, you know, I guess because that is the first time the two of them went against each other, but as Ice Cold B and Scout. But I felt like in a way Genesis was a bit condescending, I guess, in regards to some of the stuff she was saying. I do think that, as I said, I thought Ice Cold actually did quite well when she got her footing in Exile. I thought she did well. It just didn't work out with regards to all the like discord between the group. I feel like, once the initial leader left, it was a lot of discord and unhappiness within the group. But I do think when Scout was ice cold, that she came into her own. I felt like she definitely was somebody who, from the first time I've seen her until then, she definitely grown. And so this is just a new, I guess, because the character is different than it was previously as far as this new character. But I do think it's just her kind of adding up to what she's been doing this whole time. So I do think it was a good match. With that being said, I'm not sure why, Genesis' response was that way. It was no need for it to be so like sometimes I like Genesis, but sometimes I think she gets like really hung up on certain things where she seems really upset about things that necessarily doesn't mean anything bad per se, but she takes it as it. And it's like, girl, please, I promise it's not that big of a deal. Like not for just to have the matchup, it's one of those situations that like, well, you're fighting a new, version of this character, or you're fighting a character with a different type of a different gimmick, which means there's some changes in some of the things she was doing previously. But I thought it was good. I just sometimes I do think Genesis comes off very condescending at times.
She does come off condescending, and it's very interesting how she feels she can be condescending after she tapped out to two different people. It's like you had your chance to become number one contender and you wound up tapping out because you were doubly submitted. Um, and you feel like you have room to look down on Scout Parker as if you're too good to face off against her. Like, what makes you think that you're just supposed to have another tag team match? I mean, not a tag team match, another WoW World title match or another chance when you lost your number one contendership. You have to start over like everybody else. Like, You have to start over. Like, that's not how life works. If you lose an opportunity, you have to eat that L. I feel like I say this constantly when it comes to her, but it bears to be repeated because her behavior clearly has not changed. Um, you have to eat that L and work your way back up. You can't just get opportunities just because you feel like you better than everybody else. Like, and you're above everybody else. It's almost like she reminds me a lot of Squidward from SpongeBob. It's almost like she feels she's always grumpy and she feels like just because of who she is and the abilities that she has or thinks she can just have a leg up over everybody and be better than everybody and should have more opportunity when that's not the case at all. It's like you want all this glory, but you don't want to work for it. And what's so funny is I didn't think of it that way until somebody, I think his name is TJ on TikTok, actually made a video talking about Squidward and SpongeBob, and he said you don't want to work, you just want glory. And that's something that I just don't really respect fully. It just feels like Genesis wants all the glory but does not have any of the work ethic. She just wants everything just handed to her on the notion of who she is and what she, and what abilities that she has. And that's just not how life works at all. And she wants to get mad at David and she wants to get mad at Scout Parker and call her incompetent because, yes, you did beat her in this one match as Scout Parker. And you may have, fought with her when you guys were in exile and y'all were falling apart. But make no mistake, you're the reason why exile fell apart, if I'm remembering everything correctly. She was the one who wanted to break out of exile and be on her own because she felt like she was above them. And it just feels like a lot of the issues she has are very self inflicted. And I can't feel sorry for you if you're the one victimizing yourself, ma'am. You victimized yourself when you tapped out in that match and you're not number one contender. You should have fought harder. Like, and I know this might sound harsh because I know I've never wrestled a day in my life. But I just feel like when it comes to life, it's just like you can't just blame everybody else for issues that you bring upon yourself. You can't think that you're better than everybody else just because of the notion of who you are or who you think you are, because life will smack you right back the F down and let you know, okay, you might be gifted, but baby, you got to get it out the mud like everybody else. And Genesis has yet to show that she has that grit, but she has yet to show that work ethic. And that disappoints me because Miss Ma'am is talented as F, but she needs to, here again, learn how to get that work ethic and get it out the mud and don't think she's above the work ethic. Nobody is above the work ethic. So, yeah, she needs to get it together. And I'm tired. And she needs to stop bullying David because he'll make the matches and everything. But my thing is, you can't just think you above everybody and just think you could just get any and everything just because of who you think you are. That's not how life works. But yeah, I'm sorry. That was a huge rant, but that's just how I feel about it. But Genesis won the match, but she's gonna need to win a couple more matches to get another chance. And that's just the truth of life. So whatever. Moving on. We go backstage with Sibley, who is telling us about the main event, bigging up the main event with Lindsay and Lori getting ready to fight each other. And of course, she recaps all of the drama. That happened with the whole sister brother thing. It was sisters fighting each other, and then she talks about how she herself has a sibling, and how they have had their struggles with fighting, and sometimes how you just have to hash it out, like we did just previously mention. And she recapped their loss of the Wild Tag Team titles at the hands of Penelope Pink and Holly Swag in that four-way tag team match for the titles, and Lana sort of shifting her support. Well, no, I'm sorry, with Miami Sweet Heat losing those tag team titles to Big Rigs and Bourbon, and then moving forward into the whole Penelope Pink and Holly Swag support thing with Lana Star. And how since then the twins really have been getting victories, but not really, and just trying to prove that they can win without the support of Lana Star. But of course, they still have their feelings hurt because Lana basically betrayed them for the shiny new toy, in terms of the tag team of Holly and Penelope. So that, of course, fed into things into where we're at now. Now, before we got to the match, we had an entrance from Lana Star and the Wild Tag Team Champions, Penelope Pink and Holly Swag. And Lana got on the microphone and said that tonight isn't just any night. Tonight is about the future of the Fab Four. For weeks, we have seen the cracks, felt the tension, seen the stares, heard the whispers, and the betrayal between Lindsay and Lori. But let me make something perfectly clear. This isn't just about them anymore. This is about the legacy the Fab Four has built and for the health of the Fab Four. They need to settle this once and for all. So, Lindsay and Lori, I am doing this for you and the greater good. Tonight, you fight. But here again, David clocking things, he clocked it and actually said that sometimes when it comes to the craziness that goes on, you have to blame the boss. And he placed the blame on Lana Star. And I said, thank you for clocking that, David, because they wouldn't be in this situation if Lana had just believed in Miami Sweet Heat and not put her belief behind Holly Swag and Penelope Pink as a tag team because they had been operating as single stars for the longest, and it was always Miami Sweet Heat fulfilling the tag team obligations of the Fab Four. But Lana Star lost her belief in them, and now this is where we're at. So David absolutely clocked it. He clocked that T and put the blame at Lana Star's feet, and I appreciated that. So boom. So this brings us to our really dramatic main event: Lindsay Carlson versus Lori Carlson, twin versus twin for the first time in Wild history. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this kind of gave me the same feeling as watching Jimmy Uso versus Jay Uso. It put me in my feelings, and I was just like, man, why? But this is where we're at. Lori made her entrance with the same theme music, by the way, with a black leather jacket, and then Lindsay came out with the pink leather jacket. And weirdly enough, how about Penelope Pink was like, why is she coming out in a pink leather jacket? And I'm just looking like, because it's hers, ma'am. Be quiet. Um, and they came out and didn't acknowledge Penelope Pink, Lana, or Holly at all. They were focused solely on each other. And this match had very solid action. And I appreciated the fact that because I feel like the thing about tag team wrestling that a lot of people really don't feed into a bit in terms of knowledge is that the key to a great tag team is to also be a great wrestler on your own and then also having great chemistry with each other. And something that was on display in this match is that if the both of these women decided to split up today, they would be pretty good single stars. They really would, because the way that they were fighting with each other, it was really solid. It was very technically sound. You could tell that they knew each other very well because, of course, they trained together. They came up together. Like, it seemed like it was sort of, this match was like a mixture of them knowing each other's style while also being surprised at what the other could do. And it was really amazing because, of course, over the past few years, we've seen Lori be the one who isn't afraid to climb up the top rope and hit like the higher flying moves, like with the head scissors from the top rope. You see Lindsay, being a little bit more of a grappler than Lori is, but the both of them really did bring their A game to each other. And it was just really crazy because as the match went on, you could see that Holly and Penelope were either rooting for one twin or against the other twin, and they were just on two opposite sides of the ring at one point. But what made it even crazier was after they knocked each other down with a clothesline, Holly and Penelope gave them steel chairs. And Nigel, of course, mentioned that this match was not a no disqualification match, so he didn't know why they were doing that. They gave them both steel chairs, and just when it seemed that they were going to hit each other with those steel chairs, they looked at each other, stared at each other for a hot second, and hit Holly and Penelope with them. And after they hit them with the chairs, they grabbed each other for a hug, and the referee called a no contest. But in my mind, I don't feel like this match was a no contest. I feel like in the end, the twins won each other. They won each other. They both won the match and they won each other. So, of course, in the history books listed in the technical standpoint, it's no contest. But from an emotional standpoint, they won each other. So the Carlson twins are back together. They're back on the same page. Um, the episode went to commercial, and then of course they announced the Wild World Championship match between the Classmaster and Paola Mayfield. But then when they came back from commercial, Lindsay and Lori cut a very heartfelt promo about each other, with Lori starting off saying, "You know what they say, blood is thicker than water, and we're more than blood. We're family. She's my sister. She's my twin. We came up together in the womb. When I look at her, I see myself. I see myself. And for us, it's never been a competition because when she wins, I win. We've been a team our whole lives, from graduation to basketball to now our shared careers. You cannot break this bond. You can't break this." And then Lindsay chimed in and said, "It's an inseparable bond. Me and Laura, we came into this world together, and I'll be damn sure we go out of this world together," which is some pretty deep stuff. You see, me and Laura together, we're stronger. Together, we're better. And together, we're unstoppable. And that's why everyone tries to break us apart. They want to break this bond. You know why? Because they know they can't beat us when we're together. No one can break this connection and no one can break us apart, not even you, Holly. And this is where it starts to get very pointed and very personal. We brought you up from the trailer park, honey, from rags to riches. We showed you our way of life. We treated you like you were our family. And you know what, little girl? Hold on a second. My notes. Okay, here we go. You know what, little girl? Eventually, the lies start catching up with you, and we've caught on to your lies. You see, for 2 years, we've knocked down all the competition in this tag team division, right, Laura? Together. Together, we became the most decorated team in WoW history. Together, we did that. And together, we're going to continue to dominate this tag team division. Penelope and Holly, I think we need to settle this in the ring right now. Us, Miami Sweet Heat versus you. You know damn well those titles belong to us. And of course, David co signed this, and that's where the episode ended. So it seems that the Fab Four as we know it in this iteration is no more. And Miami Sweet Heat is going into it for themselves and they want their tag team titles back. This time, not for the glory, but for vindication of their sisterhood. And I like that. I like that a lot. So, Katrina, how did you feel about the match, their performance, and what happened afterward?
I think this was a good match. I said when you asked me, how, what was my thoughts about going against your twin, and I said, well, sometimes you just need to hash whatever you need to hash out, and then you'll be back in a good space again. And I think in this regard, you know, like sure there was an outside influence with, Holly and Penelope kind of implying that, things that were being said that actually wasn't said. And I do like to the point, like, even though they came out focused, they didn't necessarily let it run with it, where it was like, oh, like, you said this about me, why would you? Because they do know each other. And I feel like that they're close enough that they were able to, not take what Penelope and Holly was trying to do too seriously. I think they just went out originally with trying to have the match like they were told. With that being said, I do think because they know each other so well, it was why I felt during the match they were very even, in regards to how they were going back and forth. I think of not that they were sisters or twins or anything, but in this anime I like Naruto, and they were having the Chunin exams, and there was the character Sakura, and which was considered her, was like her rival. And they weren't sisters, they're like the same guy. They were basically every anime character, there's a rival who's the person. But they had the matchup against each other. And they basically were evenly, at the time, they were evenly matched. So much so that they got exhausted, and then basically the match was called as a draw. Nobody won. And it made me think in that regard of just being so similar in ways. But in this regard, it's just a little more because they're twins, because they're sisters. And so I thought it was good. And I liked that, even though they were also engaging in shenanigans, because they was, that they was as part of the Fab Four, they definitely was involved in a lot of shenanigans since they joined, like since they all got together. I do like that they realized before the end of the match, and they didn't allow it to really mess them up. They didn't allow it to really put a divide between the two of them. It was like they caught on quickly enough. It was like, you know what, we don't even need you guys. We will do what we were doing this whole time. And they were multi, tag champions. So, Penelope, like I said, I do like Penelope with regard to wrestling skill. And so they're on notice. I feel like, Lana, you had every opportunity to do things in a certain way, and now instead you're causing even more divide. That if Lori and Lindsay get those titles back, well, now the titles are away from you guys, and then there will be champions again. And is that what you want, Lana? And I feel like I don't know why she hasn't been thinking it that way. But with that being said, I did enjoy the match, but I was happy with the ending because it was like, again, sometimes you just need to hash it out a little bit. It doesn't need to be like knocked down, drawn out, mad extra. Sometimes a couple of like we got it out of our system and we good. And I think that's what it was, and that's what they needed, and they are now back on the same page.
Yep, they are definitely refocused. And I just would have, I just, I guess you can't really expect someone who's never been really that reasonable to actually be the voice of reason. So for Lana to actually sort of, give off the impression like, okay, you guys need to fight it out. Mind you, of course, fighting it out as siblings is something that you might have to do, even though it's been highly discouraged in my life. It is something that has to happen. It's just the idea that Holly and Penelope were feeding mess into it just really made me even more irritated at them. It's just like, Holly, you literally went from tag teaming with your mother to stabbing your mother in the back for the fabulous life, only for you to destroy the girls who were actually for you being a part of the Fab Four, which is so stupid because Penelope was never here for Holly being a part of the Fab Four. It was always Lindsay and Lori who were cool with it. But no, it's like you want to like drive a wedge between family. Like, what is Holly's problem? With family like dynamics, like is she okay, like what's the problem, like I just hated it so much. But I am happy that Lindsay and Lori have found their way back to each other, but I do have one big question. You know how when we first were introduced to Miami Sweet Heat and they popped up in those Miami clothes with the orange and the green, do you think they'll bring that back?
They might. It's very possible that they go back to what we were introduced to them as.
I hope so, because I actually miss those outfits quite a lot. I miss that because mind you, I mean, I don't mind pink and black. I mean, it's cute or whatever. But if they brought back the orange and the green, the Miami, the you, come on, let's do it. Let's do it. So yeah, but that brought an end to the episode, and also they gave a shout out to Selena Majors, who is their creative director and one of their WoW trainers. It was her birthday this past weekend, so happy birthday to her. So that was really cool too. So now we've reached the end of our time together. So thank you guys so much for watching and also interacting. With the show and with a number of clips and stuff that are always shared. Of course, if you want to watch WoW Superheroes, you can always watch it on whatever channel you find it on. You can go on wowe.com. That's WOWE.com. Type in your zip code and figure out what time it comes on for you on regular television. You can also watch it on Vice TV. I believe they show it on Wednesday nights. You can watch it then. And you can also watch it on Roku TV this summer when they create their special wrestling channel where they'll also be airing NWA. You can watch it there. And you can watch their full episodes on their YouTube channel, which is Wow Superheroes, and buy their merch and do all the things. And just continue to support them. And after you support them and watch their show, you can watch our post show that we do every week or almost every week when we can because life be life. And just continue to support us as we grow. And of course, coming up, we do have a very important and special interview that we were able to have that will be coming out pretty soon between Wow Superhero, Santana Garrett, and the big kahuna himself, the co owner of Wow, and just all around great wrestling mind and businessman, David McLean. We're so proud that we were able to have them on. So be on the lookout for that interview and tune into it and just continue to support the show. So, Katrina, thank you so much for joining me on tonight and just tell everybody where they can find and follow you and what you've got going on.
You guys can follow me on In Cat We Trust, the E, the three in every place except for Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I will have new interviews coming up. I do have some content. Again, Girly has been super busy doing 2,000 things as always. If you're in the Jersey area, just try to, check me out. I am at shows on an occasion, sometimes ring announcing, sometimes doing backstage, which is also awesome. We will have our new interview with Santana and David live on Friday, so definitely be sure to check that out. Then, but yeah, that's about it.
Awesome sauce. Well, of course, you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. You can follow the show, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, on Instagram at Hardy, Hardy, like the Hardy Boys, Wrestling Podcast. And you can follow it on Twitter at Hardy WrestlePod. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with the logo in the corner right there. And it's going to say 5 years because this is the 5 year anniversary of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast existence. Be on the lookout for any more announcements that I might have because I am in a weird creative space where there's a lot that I want to make shows about. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, watch my most recent interview I had with Lex of It's Wheezy Blonde. Please watch the interview. I had such a great time having her on the show. Please watch that. And read all of my articles from Daily DDT. I'm still working on some stuff, so hopefully, we can get that out into the ether pretty soon. And of course, book your girl if you're interested in booking me for different events like panels at your cons or commentary or ring announcing for your wrestling events. I know I'm in here in Alabama, so if you watch the show in Alabama, book me for your stuff. I'm willing to work anywhere because I have a passion for this and I want to show my chops and use my voice for good. So, with that in mind, of course, this has been Steph and Kat Talk Wow, brought to you by the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and In Cat We Trust. And until next time, bye, y'all. Support women's wrestling because it's awesome and it's getting cracking everywhere. Bye.